More potent than anything you could hope harness. Covered, see the shape of it, sweet as cloaked harmless. The nature of the beast is to hunt for fresh meat. Preying on the freaks, trap cheeks and bed sheets. Sweat me if you want, do your best, impress me. That was just a front back.
Welcome to Locker Room Talk. It's your boy Afghan Raven. And like always, I'm here with my boy
Actually Black.
And today we have a special guest with us in the studio. He is from Borderland Alternative Media. He is a contributor and writer. His name is I don't know, you want to use your real name? Why don't you throw it out there?
Yeah, Ben Lambert.
Okay, Ben Lambert from Borderland Alternative Media is with us today. Got a lot of interesting things to talk about. So with that, Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm here in St. Louis, which is always a very interesting, world to be in. It's the biggest small town that you could ever hope for. Everybody knows everybody, and it's just a really interesting place to grow up. It's a historic city, but also a city on the decline. I worked for the city of St. Louis, actually, and I lived in St. Louis City for a while. I worked in the Democratic political machine. I went to college in St. Louis. I didn't graduate because I saw the writing on the wall. I was going to be riddled with debt and not have anything to show for it. So I basically, I went to play hockey. I met some of my best friends that I still hang out with playing hockey. And a few years ago, I would say, I kind of took the plunge and became what most people call red-pilled. I started paying a lot of attention to the things that were going on around me in society and my own personal life. And then when Ferguson happened in my backyard, so basically, it was a really funny thing because Ferguson it's portrayed as like this really ghetto hellhole, and it's actually like a half white, half black town. I mean, the mayor of Ferguson is a white guy, James Knowles, and I actually sold him a pistol one time. I sold him a Walther PPS. So
really,
yeah. And my wife's my wife's uncle has a dental practice in Ferguson, so it's much different than it was portrayed throughout the riots. But when I was in Ferguson, I got the opportunity to meet, I guess I call him my boss now, Joe Biggs. At the time, he was with InfoWars. We kind of hit it off. I took him and Jakari Jackson out for dinner a couple times when they came around for the riots. Usually I'm a real techie kind of guy. I was an electromechanical technician working at a company called Multi-Data Systems. I worked for an old German guy named Arno Rostel, and I can hardly talk about him without getting emotional because he's literally, the guy is my hero. He was like 76 years old when he died. He was a brilliant physicist, and he had lived in South America, obviously in Germany, and then in the United States, so he had the most interesting perspective that I ever could have hoped for. From a boss. We had many deep conversations, et cetera, really just shaped my life like no other man outside of my own father. But after he passed away, the company went out of business. We had just too many regulatory hurdles to, overcome. And ever since then, I don't know. These things that are happening around us, these social things, society, politics going the way that it does. I have just been known as being really outspoken about my beliefs. I feel very strongly about the way I do. I'm not apologetic to anybody for what I believe. And once Joe Biggs from InfoWars actually separated kind of from InfoWars, I guess it was probably around 6 months ago, he kind of floated around a little while, and then he decided that he wanted, or he got with the gentleman who is a professional boxer, I think, who runs Borderland Alternative Media. It's www.borderlandalternativemedia.com. He was looking for writers. I decided to throw my hat into the ring, and so that's what I've been doing ever since. Just my wife being Mr. Mom, being a stay-at-home dad, and I guess pursuing the dream of writing and being able to force some sort of effective change on society, because I know I don't like personally the way it's going, and I know many people like me don't really like the way that society is going, and so I could never live with myself if I didn't do everything I could to try and change that. Right now I am writing, I'm making Facebook videos and doing whatever I can to make sure that my children have a future in the United States.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Ben, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You said previously that you used to work within the Democratic Party?
Yeah, I was. I actually worked for the guy who's the president of I think he's called the CEO of the Urban League in St. Louis now. At the time, he was at the license collector's office, which is basically like the business license office. When I was in college, it was right smack dab. Well, first semester of college in 2001 was 9/11. So I was going to freshman comp, like 9 in the morning, whatever. I was listening to Howard Stern, driving my little Galant VR4 at the time. It was awesome. It ran like I-13, all-wheel drive turbo. It was sick.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was sweet. And
oh, man.
I heard the air raid sirens going off, and everybody slowed down on the highway. And I turned Stern on, and I was listening to. He was like, "Oh, a plane hit the World Trade Center, blah blah blah, whatever." I get to my freshman comp class, and everybody is sitting around like somebody just died, and I was like, "Oh yeah, awesome, carnage, bro, like cool." And it turned out that it was not very fucking cool, because can I curse? You guys,
Yeah.
Curse away.
Yeah, we curse all the time.
Yeah, I don't even know why I asked. And I was, I don't know, I guess W turned me into somebody who is a little bit more left-leaning. I was always fiscally conservative, but socially I just couldn't identify with the people who were supporting that just fucking idiot. Like, the guy was he was a dope. And I couldn't see that. So I wasn't like I was a staunch Democrat or anything like that, but I knew I wasn't a Republican. So, I was going to college, playing hockey, doing my things that the college people do, at least at a commuter campus in St. Louis, because I went to University of Missouri St. Louis, which is a commuter campus. And, eventually I just... I was working at A.G. Edwards full-time, going to school full-time, playing hockey, and, it was time for a change job-wise. And one of my friends, the guy that I play hockey with, his girlfriend, now ex-girlfriend, was like, "Hey, there's a job open at the Board of Aldermen for the city of St. Louis. You should apply for it. I know the guy who's in charge there," or like he's the legal counsel, blah, blah, blah. So, long story short, I got the job. I made friends with one of the aldermen. As you know, probably, maybe you might or might not know, in St. Louis, the only way that you can get into politics and that you can become an elected official at all is by being a Democrat. It's one of the Democrat machine politics cities. I mean, most cities that aren't the South, and even some cities in the South now, are Democrat run. It's machine politics. So I stayed at the Board of Aldermen for, I want to say, 6 months to a year. I became friends with Michael McMillan, who is a great guy. I got to say that, like, he's a Democrat, but I don't hate people for what they believe for the most part. And, he was always just a really honest guy. And I really, we're still friends to this day. He still calls me like the little brother that he never had, and he identifies as a black man, but you would never know it by looking at him. He looks like a white. You should Google it right now. Michael McMillan. He's the president. Anyway, so I worked at the license collector's office with him, for him, and then once he went to the Urban League, that's when I got into the corporate world. And I worked for the city of St. Louis. I worked in machine politics. But I don't know, it really gave me an appreciation for what the city was like, because at the business license office, you dealt with, the most affluent, had their shit together type person, his name's John Edwards. He runs the, hipster area of town, basically, all the way down to the, lowliest sidewalk vendor who comes in, straight off the street and wants what they call a peddling license. It's actually a peddler's license, but that's neither here nor there. But you saw like the diversity from one end of the spectrum to the other, and that really was an interesting experience, to say the least. Being like the one guy in the office who didn't really know anybody, who wasn't connected, because everybody, their cousin also works at St. Louis City Hall, or they know this person, or they worked for that person. I was like the only guy that wasn't. The only person that I knew was the head of the office. Well, obviously, as you can imagine, I had a target on my chest.
I see.
Most people in that office were black, and they were like, who the fuck is this little white boy with this fucking, smiling at everybody? He thinks he's better than me? Fuck this. So, it was an interesting dynamic, to say the least, but I definitely learned a lot from being there, and I'm definitely very happy that McMillan is in charge of the Urban League, especially during the Ferguson bullshit that went down, because I know for a fact in my heart that he would never do anything intentionally to ruin race relations in the city of St. Louis, and I firmly believe that. And I'm talking about a Democrat who identifies as liberal. So it's not really, with me, I look at the man and the fruits of that man's labor rather than the labels that they put on themselves. I mean, I look at the labels too, don't get me wrong.
No, I see exactly what you're saying.
But, you can't just do that. And that's, so yeah, machine politics in the city, it's an interesting thing, for sure.
No, I find it's very funny about labels, because I find more and more as I get older and older, the further away I want to get away from labels. Because it seems like every label confines you to this certain set of either belief or whatever set of criteria. And if you go out of that criteria, you're all of a sudden out of the group. Like, I look at what happened with Tommy Lauren. Yeah. Tommy Lauren, for all she's done for the conservative movement and everything, she says one thing about her personal beliefs about
abortion.
What was it? Abortion.
Abortion, yeah.
I mean, if that's how she feels about that, that doesn't void everything else out. You understand what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And it's like, you can't, so now she's not conservative because she stepped out of line. That's almost as impressive as what the other side is trying to do. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Trump supporter these days, it's like you either have to be on board or you're not on board anymore. You're on the Trump train or you're not on the Trump train. Whereas I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it from the standpoint of a pragmatist, where I want whatever is best for the country. And I don't care who does it. I want us to progress forward. I want things to get better. And I am going to call the guy out when he doesn't do the right thing, when he goes sideways, when he, releases a 1.1 or doesn't veto a $1.1 trillion budget. I mean, that's Bush era shit. That's Obama era shit. And I'm not going to stand by silent just because I need to toe the party line. That's stupid. And I was talking to my brother today, actually, and, even though he identifies he's a professional poker player and he's going to win the World Series of Poker this year, and I'm never going to have to work a day in my life. But until that happens, he's not like a staunch liberal, but, he's so smart and analytical. It's like he analyzes things, and he's made so much progress as far as going from, I'll never vote for, he told me one time, I'll never vote for the party of Jesus, is what he said, because he just hates the religious right. And rightfully so. I mean, the religious right is fucking obnoxious, to say the least.
Yeah. A bit fanatical. Yeah.
I agree. So it's like, I don't know. It's very weird. I want everybody to think for themselves and not think as a group, because groupthink is dangerous, and we're supposed to be a country of individuals. That's how they wanted it. We're a country of individuals with individual rights. We're all children of God, blah, blah, blah. So,
I mean, you would think that until you like look at some of these ads on YouTube that I believe it's called like the Think Center, where they tell you that, oh, you shouldn't be voting for what's right for you. You should be voting for what's right for everyone else. And I'm listening to this. I'm driving a car.
What's the point of your vote?
I'm like, so then why the fuck am I voting? I'm like, wait, no,
Right.
that's right. I vote for myself. I'm like, it's just
Look.
asinine to think that, you know, don't vote what's right for you. Like, that thought is asinine because you're voting what's right for you. You don't vote what's right for fucking, you know, Paco on the southern border as he's climbing over it. You're
Right.
voting what's right for you and your family. Like,
Right.
that's who you're voting for, you know, what's right. And that's what you have to think about first. It's not what's right for everyone else. And, like, that ideology, that hive mindset is stupid at the end of the day.
Well, coming from the race of the hive mindset,
And it begins.
you know, you have. I don't even think they vote in their own interest, because honestly, if black people really knew what they really needed to do, they would be more conservative black folks, because conservative principles would really benefit our race way more than these liberal principles would. And it's been proven. I mean, they could just look at the track record and see the damage that's been done year after year after year. But they are so conditioned in that hive mindset. I mean, I could barely go anywhere. It's at the point that now if I see a group of, like, it could be a group of my family members, if they start talking politics, if I go in, I have to be ready to take on everybody, or I would just have to leave it alone. It's one of the two.
Yep.
And it just depends on how I feel. Some days, you know, I might have my armor on that day, and I'm ready for a war. But then sometimes it's a waste of energy, because no matter how many times you give them facts, you get them right into a corner, you box them in with their own arguments, they just change it, act like you didn't even say anything, and start arguing something else. It's like arguing with a woman, you know?
Yeah, it's not even that good. I was trying to talk to my uncle today about the election in France, and you know, he said, what was his status on Facebook? He said something to the effect of, you know, thank goodness France voted 2-1 against racism and Islamophobia. And I was like, wait a second, why is trying to preserve your culture and trying to make sure that you are, you know, doing what's right for the people who have been in France for centuries and centuries, why is that racist? And he's like, oh, that's spoken like a true white supremacist. And it's like, whoa. Like, you
didn't even say white in that sentence.
You're supposed to know.
You said your country.
No, no. Like, what is wrong? Like,
Because apparently trying to preserve...
Supremacists. I have never said the words "white people are the best" ever in my life. I have never done that. I don't even think that.
No, because trying to preserve people's
It's always
lives
like-
is racist.
Yeah.
White folks are not allowed to have pride.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is that, like, by the end of the conversation, it was not even a debate. It was me asking questions and, you know, trying to actually figure out what is the answer to this, because there's no way that a guy who is this smart, who is an engineer, who, I mean, he's related to me, so obviously I still love the guy. He was my favorite uncle growing up, by far. I mean, the guy, I worship the guy. We went to the Vans Warped Tour together in 1995. My parents would have hated it if they knew that I went, but he knew that I wanted to go. I mean, the guy he's awesome. But so I'm like, I'm trying to understand, and he called me a fascist, a white supremacist, said that I've already heard all of the arguments from the right, so I'm not going to sit here and listen to this, and if you want to talk about this, take it somewhere else. Like, I'm not going to listen to your fascism. And it's like, well, dude, I'm trying to have a discussion with you. I'm trying to understand what your perspective is. Please tell me, because I don't want to be like this with my fucking family. And I mean, it's worse now than it ever has been. But to my brother's credit, he did back me up. He was like, I was in the shower today, and I was thinking, if somebody has been in France for centuries and centuries and doesn't want a bunch of, Muslims from the third world moving in, I feel like I'm okay with that. He went on a whole other part, and actually it was like one of the most brilliant things. My brother is a genius, and he's very analytical. He's a professional poker player. He has to be. And it's like, what he said was so on point, and so it crystallized the entire topic. And it's like, he identifies as liberal, but he's a classical liberal. He's the type of liberal that, Thomas Jefferson and the founders were, who said that they were liberal. He's not like I want socialism type of guy. He understands that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It's like, we're having this spat in our family on fucking Facebook, and I don't understand how we ever got this far, how society ever got this bad, and it doesn't lead to hope.
They can't disagree without getting violently disagreeable. Mm-hmm. I remember times when I would be, if I'm in a bar and if politics came up. I know that's one of the worst places to discuss politics, but right. I'm in a bar, and I remember there were certain times where there'll be certain men that are on the opposite aisle, but these are men that I respect. And we've been able to have just conversations like, you know what, well, this is why I'm voting for Hillary. I'm like, okay, but I wouldn't vote for her because of this, that, and the fourth. And it's been fine. But then you get around to the women and the men that are by the woman. And what I notice is, yes. And what happens is they'll since the women are there and the women have this sort of opinion, they're going to take that opinion and become extra disagreeable with you because they got to make sure that they impress the woman.
Right.
So you'll say something very simple, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, everyone is screaming. And no matter how you try to calm it down, just like you did, you try to get down to a point. Like, well, let me try to understand what you're saying. Like, what are you actually trying to say to me? They got nothing for you. And this is what you see outside when you look at all these protests. We look at all this Antifa shit and all of this stuff going on. They have nothing for you. No. It's just a bunch of emotion. Like, the country's become so charged off emotion. It's like somebody just... Instead of vaccines, they must have been just giving out concentrated estrogen shots or something like that,
They're putting chemicals in the water that's turning all the frogs gay.
This is what I mean. Some of the stuff that I hear. I remember one time, I forget what this person.
It's sad, but it's true.
It's true.
Poison. We're living in a poison environment, and it hits us from all sides. It's a very brilliant plan that. It connects big business to the media, to the politicians, and it's an overbearing effect that poisons young minds. Oh, yeah. From the very beginning, you have Nickelodeon, that Disney, all these companies that are pushing these things into children's soft minds until they don't even know whether they're a fucking boy or a girl anymore. Like, what the fuck? If in Kindergarten Cop, most famous fucking line from Kindergarten Cop, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. That is taboo. That is taboo. How dare you these days?
How dare you?
How dare you say boys have a penis, girls have a vagina? Like, why would you ever go by biological markers? Don't you know that gender is fluid and it's, you identify as an attack helicopter, and therefore I'm an attack helicopter. And if you, fuck you. And yes, I am going to go into the women's restroom because I like pussy. I mean, because I identify as a woman. Yeah, that's it. It's fucking, it's pitiful. It's pitiful. That's why I did the video today, because I was like, this is a total black pilling day for me. Like, everything seems fucked. Everything seems like it's going the wrong way. And I didn't think that it was going to be like this. I thought it was going to be much, much different than it was. I figured that, well, now it's actually coming out that they had torn ballots and stuff like that in France. And torn ballot is actually, they throw them away. They throw them out if they're torn. So of course there's going to be election fraud, because the globalist forces that run everything know that they cannot let another country fall.
Yeah, and this is the thing, yeah, because I was at work when I was reading all this election stuff, and I was like, there is no way this globalist shell won. I'm like, he's hardly packing arenas. I'm like, I'm looking at Le Pen, and I'm like, Le Pen's doing, if not at the same rate, better than Trump was doing than at rallies. She's packing out arenas. She has the countryside on her side. I'm like, the only places that she's not getting, again, are big cities like Paris and Paris. Because other than that, every place outside of Paris were really pulling for her because, there's where the migrant crisis is happening. That's where they're sending the migrants to these fucking towns outside of Paris. They're, fucking running rampant. They're raping girls. They're being violent. And, she understands that. And these people want her in power to get rid of them. So, and I'm like, I figured she was going to just lose Paris. I was like, yeah, she'll probably lose Paris. But she'll win the outside. And that would be where she won. But when they're saying it was like a landslide victory, like he won
2-1.
Yeah,
right.
Like,
it's
he won
almost
65.
unheard of.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, there's no way these outside cities voted for fucking this globalist fucking shill. The guy who married his fucking 85-year-old fucking high school English teacher. Like,
right.
Like really?
Yeah. The dude also has, been money laundering and all this other stuff that's coming out. I thought that I was just shocked because I figured, I don't know, despite everybody's, desire to virtue signal and therefore claim the moral high ground and say, oh, look at me, I'm not racist because I'm for this guy. I didn't see it coming. I really didn't. I thought the meme magic was going to come through again.
And then what pisses me off the most is that the U.S. wants to talk about, we don't interfere in people's fucking elections. Yet the U.S. was interfering in France's elections.
And
elections. I mean, sorry, not erections. I mean,
we
elections.
don't interfere in people's elections.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. We change other countries' elections
all the time.
We don't even care.
Yeah.
We install dictators.
That's what I'm saying. and
CIA installs dictators. Hey, but I like Pinochet because he was fighting communism, and fighting communism is always okay in my book.
Yes.
Because I don't care what anybody says. I would rather have a Nazi. I would rather have all my neighbors be National Socialists than have one neighbor as a commie, because that's much more despicable. I find communists.
Communists are lazy.
They are it despicable, and it makes me pissed off to even think about it, to be honest with you. But yeah, it was a black one type of day for me. I'm really worried about my children's future. I really, really am.
I mean, and it's sad, like, if you think about the only people who are fighting back against globalism is, I mean, like, Putin, Assad, and Trump.
Notice how all three of those names you named are demons. They all been demonized. Every single person you just named has been demonized.
Like
what's that meme about the banks in Iran and Cuba and North Korea about, like, these are the countries that don't have Rothschild banks? I don't know if it's true or not. Probably Snopes would say that that's bullshit, but fuck Snopes anyway.
Oh yeah,
but
Snopes.
it comes down to economics. That's what my old boss Arna always told me, and he had the long perspective on things. He said, it's economics. It's always economics. I mean, even what was Reagan, it's economics, stupid. And that's what it always comes down to. Unfortunately, the way that the banks run everything now, has just completely, it's part of the ruin of society. It really is. And we passed a $1.1 trillion budget, or we're going to pass a $1.1 trillion budget. How? I mean, how? Trump ran on the premise of let's take power away from these alphabet agencies. Let's take money away from the government. We don't want to empower the government. he did run saying that he was going to build up the military, so there were no false pretenses about that. But I thought that we were getting a wall. I thought that we were getting a stable economy. I thought that we were going to, have a balanced budget, and we're not having things.
But apparently,
I thought we were going to. What happened to prosecuting Hillary too?
But apparently, with this budget, though, this is a budget that was under the Obama administration. So this is an Obama administration budget that was never signed. And the only thing that is coming out of this that he is getting, because he said that he would not sign a budget, it was unless he got a bigger military increase, border security, and funding for school choice.
Not a law.
Well, not a wall. No, because this is in his budget. Because again, this is in his budget.
Right.
So this is a budget based off of the Clinton, the fucking Obama administration.
Ultimately, he has veto power, though, and if he decides not to exercise it, he faces government shutdown.
Exactly.
Everybody gets upset, blah blah blah. But government shutdown seems actually pretty awesome to me, because the number one killer of people throughout history was who? The government. So, I mean, and I get it. We need it. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, we need to figure this out. But I don't know if the reason why we're not is because Trump basically has had it explained to him, hey, you're going to go along or we will fucking kill you. Guess what? Your daughter is married to one of our people. Your daughter is one of our people. So, you know what? You're going to do what we say. We're going to let you have a little bit. We're going to give you this and that, but we're not going to just let you take it all over and turn it upside down like you think you're going to, because you're going to end up dead. Imagine what you would do if somebody threatened the life of one of the members of your family. You would do almost, and you legitimately thought that they were capable of doing so and getting away with it, because they obviously are. Right. I mean, have you ever heard of any president who's ever bucked the establishment that much has either been shot and killed or has had an attempt on their life? People seem to forget that Reagan was shot. So they assassinate Reagan. That's not like it's ancient history. Yeah. None of us were alive when Kennedy was shot, so we don't have that memory. None of us probably remember when Reagan was shot either, but it's not like it didn't happen recently enough that, it's something to be considered. So I don't know. My opinion, especially recently, has been that Trump is going sideways, and I don't know why. The only thing that I can really pin it on is the fact that Kushner's running the show. I mean, I heard from Dr. Steve Pieczenik, who is a guy. He co-wrote all of Tom Clancy's novels, or most of Tom Clancy's novels, and he used to be the psychological warfare operation head for the CIA in Southeast Asia. So this is a guy who knows what's going on, has sources, and historically, because what I do is the way that I do things is if I see an article or something that I like, I take note of it, cut it out, or bookmark it, or save it, and then I put it away, and I see if it comes true or not. And if a year or two down the road it's true, then I know that guy has good sources. Pieczenik has consistently had good sources and given good information, and his opinion from very early on, before most people were even saying anything about it, was if there's one person in the Trump administration that stands to be manipulated or bribed or otherwise, or who is the target of foreign government interference, it's Kushner, because he has these land deals and these buildings that he owns, and when you own property, it only takes one failing property in order to bring your entire empire down. Kushner has these deals with George Soros going on. He, look at how much Trump loves his daughter. I mean, during the election, I went to the Trump rally, the one in St. Louis, of course, where, you saw the birth of Abe Skrillex and Carl the Cuck. That was St. Louis. I saw those guys in person.
You're a fucking white male.
You're a male. Are you kidding me? Yeah, that was fucking...
And you're privileged.
And the dude who said, "Oh, them good old white days is over, bro." That guy he's a St. Louis, and I saw him get his face bashed by the police too. It was interesting. It was interesting. But anyway, you see what Trump, the way he feels about his daughter. They were holding up signs. Trump wants to fuck his daughter. They have pictures of him. They're like, "Ugh, he's creepy. Look at this picture. His hands on her thigh. She's sitting on his lap. He's a weirdo." Blah blah blah. But one thing that remains consistent throughout those photos is you can tell that girl is the apple of her father's eye. Well, guess what? She is part of the power structure in New York. She mixes she's in cahoots with all the people who are the elites, the societal elites, the cultural elites of New York. She, hangs out with the Jay-Z's and the Beyoncés. So she's not on the team. She's not on the people's side. And Kushner is dangling her out in front of Trump's face. Oh, what was it? We all heard about when he bombed Syria, that she was like, "Oh, Daddy, look, pictures of dead babies." The one thing that is consistent, and so of course he went right off and did it. And who does that benefit? It benefits Israel. Mm-hmm. Okay, we are shilling for Israel's foreign policy. Kushner is the person who is in charge. As soon as Bannon was marginalized and taken out of a position of power in Trump's administration, that is when immediately the media started warming up to Trump. Not CNN, but most of the media was hellaciously, they wanted the guy dead. But after he bombed Syria, after Bannon was gone, he's getting rid of all these racist alt-right people out of his administration. You saw him go directly sideways. The media warmed up to him, and now we are at the point that we are today. And
I remember Chuck Schumer came out and was congratulatory and aligned himself with it.
He also
Hillary
I'm not
Clinton.
anything, but Chuck Schumer does echo. I mean, when you see the coincidences, it's real. And like I say, I try never to hate anybody or to pass judgment on people based on what they are. There are lots of people I consider myself alt-right. There are lots of people who on the alt-right who actually are racist shitheads. I call them stormer fags because they go to Stormfront. And although there is a lot of legitimate and good information on Stormfront, it's also loaded with cops, and it's also loaded with actual real racists who are fucking ridiculous, But I'm not like that. But when the coincidences are there over and over and over and over, you can't keep denying it. You can't keep being scared of being called an anti-Semite. You just can't, because we're losing the country. We're losing the country. And I mean, it gives me goosebumps because I've got kids. I can't have my kids growing up in a country where my son is being told that it's not okay that he's a white male. And, maybe if he feels like he doesn't fit in, maybe he's transgender. Maybe he's not actually a boy at all. My daughters are being encouraged, through subliminals and through advertising and just media in general that, race mixing is cool. It's not a big deal if you want to race mix. And it's not like, I don't think people are free to do whatever the fuck they want. But it's not. It's not the fact that it's happening and it's become normalized. And
it's being pushed.
It's the fact that it's being pushed. There's an agenda, and there's an anti-white agenda, and we can't just sit here as white people on our hands, and be materialistic and just think, oh, okay, well, the TV came on and Fox News told me this, so I guess that's the way it really is. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna live in that world. I'm not going to live in that world. I'm going to do whatever I can to stop that from happening. And all arrows not all arrows, but most arrows in my mind point towards Israel and the fact that our greatest ally is actually our greatest enemy. And very likely, there's no argument about it. They run more of our government than they should. They have more powerful lobbies than they should. And it's gotten to a point where it took the alt-right being racist basement-dwelling trolls. Not maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Maybe they're posting them to just, be edgy, posting racist memes, Pepe as a Nazi, whatever. but it started the conversation. People started to notice these things, and the more and more people notice these things, the more we can try and protect our country. We know who runs the media. We're not going to sit here and deny who runs the media. You've got guys like Sumner Redstone running Nickelodeon and all the other, Zionist Jews. I mean, I can't believe that I'm sitting here sounding like David Duke, but I also can't believe that David Duke has so much to say. That's right.
David Duke,
I mean, what the fuck?
David Duke, and Louis Farrakhan both agree on this.
Yep. And
both agree on this, and they have facts to back up what they're saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they, it is amazing because I remember when Tommy Sotomayor interviewed David Duke.
I love Sotomayor. He's awesome.
I actually met the guy.
Really?
Yeah. He had a show here in New York once, and I went down. It was, man, he was so cool. After the show, he took everyone out for drinks. We all just hung out for a while, and he sat there, talked with everybody. Cool, down to earth person, man. Really great guy. But he interviewed when he interviewed David Duke, and when Alex Jones interviewed Louis Farrakhan.
I remember that one.
Remember that. Both of those were very eye-opening, informative interviews because there was more to both of these men than what anybody would naturally think or has been portrayed. They give you this cookie cut image, all right, this is a racist and he's another racist, and they just hate. But it's not that. Both of them are pointing to the fact that there is a controlling element in this country. Now, Duke says it affects his people. Farrakhan was saying it's affecting his people. But that same controlling element, the things that they push on us, they would never have over there.
Right. That's why I had my profile picture, open borders for Israel. Because why are they allowed to have their ethno-state? Why is Israel allowed to have an ethno-state, but no European country can be expected not to take in hundreds of thousands of migrants, a demographic warfare operation that's going to ruin Europe? I mean, we're talking about ruining a society that has brought us everything. I mean, it makes me sick. It makes me sick. I'm constantly floored. Every day, I just can't believe that I would even, growing up, you are told, that David Duke's terrible, David Duke's a racist, but then you listen to what he says, the most eye-opening interview was when he went on Alex Jones. That was the grudge match that really got me thinking more than anything. I mean, I had an idea. I heard these people say, "Oh, Jones is a Zionist shill," this and that about Alex Jones, but when David Duke went on there, the way he was treated versus the way Jones treated his other guests, it was an eye opener. There's actually,
because he denies all of the Jewish stuff, right? He doesn't let them get that off, right?
He wasn't always like that though. Back in the 90s, it's coincidentally a few. I think I used to be a daily Alex Jones show listener because he has the best guests. That's where I discovered Pachenik, who I was talking about earlier. He has the best guests. He talks about things that you will never see in the mainstream. And a lot of the time, more often than not, the stuff that he talks about actually either comes true or, I mean, if you sit there and you go through and you just Google everything he says, you can see what's true and what's not true. And the majority, I would say like 85% of the things that he says are right on. The problem is the 15% of what he doesn't say are the things that are the most damaging to Western culture and Western society. There's actually another guy on the fringe even more. His name is Dr. William L. Pierce. He is actually, he was a professor of physics, so like a uber genius, right? Because physics is hard, but it's also science. Now, he worked at a college as a professor, and he started getting in trouble because he wouldn't pass people. And what they were saying was, you don't have a high enough rate of, of success in your classes. But he was saying, I wouldn't ever not pass somebody unless I didn't think that they could hack it as a professional physicist. I would not pass somebody who couldn't hack it. And the college basically came back to him and said, well, you have to because we need the numbers, whatever. And he said, well, then you need to tighten up your admission standards. And they said, no, you need to pass more people. That's just the way it's going. And so in seeing the way that went down, he started to look at things differently. You know, he started to question things. But the thing I like about Pierce is, and not everything he says is, because he's like an all or nothing type of guy, but that's the way a physicist is. He looks at everything in a purely scientific standpoint. He looks at the statistics, he looks at the history, and he's actually dead now. I think he died in like 2005. But all of his work is on YouTube. It's all YouTube videos. And, I mean, some of it, I am not going to act like it doesn't make me cringe a little bit because it gets a little bit too edgy for me. But I would say that Pierce is also a good guy to listen to really discover a lot of the things that are conveniently left out of, news, media, Hollywood, etc. And I think we all know what I'm talking about when I say news, media, and Hollywood. I mean, I don't like that. I hate it.
News, media, and Hollywood.
Oh, it is what it is. Like, why can't we say it? Why can't we question it? If you want to know who owns you, it's the people who you are not allowed to question. We are not allowed to ever question Saudi Arabia. We're not allowed to ever question Israel. And we're turning a blind eye to the fact that Hollywood is actually buying, or China is actually buying up a lot of Hollywood studios and being consulted on whether or not to be able to give the green light to film production. They had to change the new Red Dawn to be Korea instead of China because China said, you're not going to release that movie. So it's we live in a very interesting time in history. And it's
pivotal.
It's now or never. It's do or die. And you can see that it fires me up. Yeah, I have passion for this above everything else, and I mean I've lost friends over it. People, when I got my first DNA test back and it came back as 2.8% Jewish, people were like, you're Jewish, you're a self-hating Jew, blah blah blah, and it's like, no, that's not it. It's not it at all. It's not about that. It's about, let's look at reality. We cannot keep turning our back on reality. It's like trying to argue against math, which Common Core is teaching our children to do. God damn it. So yeah, I mean,
fucking Common Core.
Yeah.
It's true because AR and I, we had this conversation on a previous show. He was talking about what they were teaching his daughter at school, and how she came home from school one day. AR, you wanna bring that back? Remember that, right?
Yeah. So they were talking about slavery in my daughter's school, and like the perception of slavery, and like my daughter came back and she was like, "Oh my God, slavery is so bad. I can't believe what white people did at slavery." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "Yeah, you know how white people stole black people." And I was like, "No, that's not how it happened." I was like, "Nobody was stolen."
Slave trade.
Well,
I was like, it was a slave trade. I was like, that's the most important key word is a trade. I was like, she was like, well, what do you mean? I was like, black people and other black people fought wars and, took prisoners, and they traded black people for wine and spices and booze, and they traded that to white people. And then white people traded that stuff for the black people, like the trade. That's how it worked.
6% of people owned slaves in the South, and
some of them were black.
Right. Of that 6%, I don't remember what percentage is, so I'm not going to try and quote a percentage, but a large percentage, over 50% of the people who owned slaves worked in the field next to their slave. But Hollywood tells us, we got to shame Whitey. Hollywood tells us that, oh no, slave owners were, I've got to whip that slave. Everybody is trying to run away. Whip them, put them in the hot box, Django Unchained. And it's like, no, that's not really how it was. But it's all part of the agenda. Yeah. Interesting fact about the slave trade. I don't mean to keep pointing this out, but you know who owned all those ships?
Yeah,
it was merchants.
That was a Jew.
And so it's like nobody is not guilty of slavery at one point or another. Nobody. Everybody was a slave at one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people who are still slaves. The biggest ring of white slavery right now is operated out of Tel Aviv. You can Google that. They have a problem where, and this is, I get fired up about this because these are my people. My mom is, practically all Polish and Czech. And what they do is they either kidnap, they entice them, or by whatever means necessary, they are stealing Slavic women from Eastern Europe and Russia and taking them down to Tel Aviv, where they become white slaves, sex slaves. And it's like, slavery is still a thing. Yeah. And you know what country has less slavery than a lot of other countries? Ours. You know what country was one of the first to eliminate slavery? Ours. You know which states were some of the first to start making slavery illegal? Southern states. It's like they're not teaching this in school. My daughter came home with an assignment. It wasn't an assignment. It was from this librarian. And the Marxist ass fucking cunt librarian at my daughter's school is a fucking communist. Just straight fucking. And she looks like one, too. She looks the part. She brought this shit home that said, read 3 books. It was called very, snarky, tear down the wall reading, or like reading without walls, or something like this. A play on build the wall, build the wall.
Tongue in cheek, right?
And it was like, read 3 books about somebody who doesn't live like you or doesn't look like you, and then write a paragraph about it. And it's like, why? Like, okay, yeah, I get it, but it's also like, why not just read books? And why kindergarten? Why are we starting in kindergarten? Like, we never had to worry about this stuff when I was in kindergarten. We never worried about it. I never even thought about race when I was in kindergarten. I never thought of it.
Right.
I didn't think about it at all.
But Ben, see, that was my point, because now my daughter, when she comes home from school, they're teaching her about, she's in 1st grade, they're teaching her about Martin Luther King. For some reason, I don't know why, they boiled that man's life down to I had a dream. Mm-hmm. When Martin Luther King was essentially a sleazebag preacher, like most preachers are, sleazebag preachers.
Right.
But she's coming home with
a real misogynist. Absolutely. If you see what the FBI files on him, what J. Edgar Hoover was threatening him with, all the evidence of his tryst with prostitutes and how he meted prostitutes on the road. Now, look, I have to hold him to a different standard, because you saying you're a reverend. You're saying that you've been called by God to do this work. If you say something like that, then I have to hold you to a higher standard. You can't be doing that. You can't be. I can't look at you like a regular Joe Schmo. You've been called by God. That's what you're telling me. Even a regular Joe Schmo shouldn't behave like that.
Exactly. But you've been called by God. So now that's something different.
Even more.
So they're teaching her that, and she's coming home saying, well, so white folks used to such and such and this, that, and the fourth. And I'm like, ain't this a bitch? Here it goes. Afghan and I just had this conversation, and there goes the seeds planted for white guilt. My daughter comes home talking about this stuff, and I'm like, there goes the seeds for victimization. Here it goes. They get them while they're young, and they're trying to split everything up. So now I have to deprogram her and give her the truth. I'm like, if you want to be mad at someone about slavery, get mad at that Arab. Right. Because what the Arabs did was some real brutal stuff. Mm-hmm.
That's and still to this day are
doing. Still to this day are doing. I'm like, I told her, I was like, a slave over here was like a person having a Rolls Royce. Not many people could afford it. And it didn't matter what color you was. Slavery wasn't a racial thing. It was a financial thing.
You weren't going to beat up on your Rolls Royce because you needed your Rolls Royce to help you do your work. I mean, it seems like it's so basic to me, like it's basic. It's common sense, but society has completely gone off the deep end. We have lost our common sense completely.
No, all they need is one example to make it the narrative of the whole history.
Exactly.
Because that's what they want, because that keeps somebody in a certain mind state that they can't achieve because there's some unseen force working against them. And thus they sit back and be like, well, no, I can't do it, so they don't try. So now you have a race of people right where you want them. You could keep them right there. That's what the white liberals are doing. You know what I mean? And the more you try to have this conversation, the more you try to say, hey, take some personal responsibility. Hey, it's up to you to decide your future. Nobody else is stopping you. This isn't happening in this world today. Falls on deaf ears. And that's where I get frustrated at.
No doubt.
You know, especially with and you know how you were just talking about the children. We're raising our families, the things that we have to raise them in, and the situations that are going on. My daughter came, she's in first grade. She came home the other day and said, such and such said that she wants to eat someone's vagina.
Jesus Christ.
No. I blame fucking Bill Nye for that one.
I'm like, here we go.
It's the lowest common denominator. It's the lowest common denominator. When I rode the bus at my parents pulled me out of public school because by the time I was second or third grade, I knew everything there was to know about sex, about everything else, because it's not that when you take the bad kid and put them in a good environment that it's going to bring the bad kid up. It's going to take all the other kids and bring them down a little bit. It's not, and it's like you are the lowest common denominator. Mm-hmm. It's true in life. It's true on a sports team. You are only as good as the weakest link, and if the weakest link is a fucking piece of shit, it doesn't matter what color they are. If the weakest link comes from a trash family with no morals, then it's over. It's over for everybody because everybody wants to know. It's that forbidden information. It's the forbidden fruit, and that is it's one of the follies of mankind in general, is that man desires what man cannot have. And that forbidden information is always going to be there, but if the entire community doesn't resist it, then it's out. It's out. It's Pandora's box. Sad.
Jesus Christ. I can't believe she said that.
It took me back. They're in first grade. I mean, they're in first grade talking about this.
So what did you tell her?
Oh, I told her that most likely the girl doesn't know what she's talking about yet. But these are things that she hears at home because it's the way that girl was raised. It's what's going on in that girl's household. It's what she hears probably the adults talking about, or maybe she's seen something that the entertainment that's made for an adult, and she's bringing that here because when she says that, it gets a reaction. It gets a reaction.
Yeah.
And then I just explained to her that she's going to see this. This won't be the last time, and that you're going to be able to choose what type of person you want to be. You don't have to engage in stuff like that. When they start talking about these things, you know how you were raised, you know the household you came from. You take yourself and cut yourself out of that. And you don't make those people your friends because you and them don't have anything in common.
Yeah.
I just left it at that.
It's kind of hard, though, because...
You're a good dad.
I try to be.
Well, I mean, that's a great explanation, honestly. I'm not even bullshitting at all. That's a good way to put it. I'm going to use that when my daughter comes home, talking about all the fucking...
Bullshit.
But this is the thing, though. It's like, but they're getting it from everywhere, because even, like, shows that they're watching are talking about stuff like this. I mean, like, Bill Nye, like, you think Bill Nye's a freaking kid's show, but yet his first episode of his Netflix series, he's talking about ice cream having freaking sex with each other, fucking, which literally is talking about, like, gay sex, They have a fucking, a chick talking about having sex with another girl and another guy.
Right, yeah, I saw that one. It was like a song or something.
Yes.
It was really funny because she said something about it's as good as bagels and lox, and I was like, oh my God, I can't take it. I can't take it. Like, I know where this is coming from. Yeah. I know who's in charge of this, but I can't say it. I can't say anything about it, lest I be called names and, ostracized from my community.
Exactly. But the thing is, like, every kid knows who Bill Nye is, and if some kid sees that shit on fucking Netflix, they're like, oh, it's the Bill Nye show. They fucking put that on, and that's what they're gonna get. And, it's like these programs that, because they're run by fucking liberals who are, like, halfway retarded,
soulless, brain. They're not retarded. They're brilliant.
Oh.
There's one of the best videos. If you guys haven't watched this video, you should really owe it to yourself to watch it, because you can see the type of it's like a
Indoctrination.
Yeah, it's a KGB style psychological warfare operation. Now the video is called "Deception Was My Job." Tell me if you've heard of it. From Yuri Bezmenov.
Yes, I've heard. Yes,
But
if you listen to the rest of that
eye-opening
thing,
video ever, because he tells exactly how the demoralization happens. And I think that there is actually something lost in translation on that, like because he does not talking because we use demoralize in a different way. We use demoralize like, oh, that was a demoralizing defeat for that team, like they're demoralized, and so people have become acclimated to hearing that and thinking like, yeah, it's really bad, they're sad about it. But what he really means is demoralization, like the unraveling of the morality of the country. He's not talking about being demoralized, like, oh, we're so sad because, I'm sad the media is
not a crushing defeat. You're not talking about a crushing defeat. We're talking about morals. We're talking about morals. The communists back in the day, they knew that America was a nation of morals. Our morality was what set us apart from other countries and Western society in general. And that's one of the foundations upon which the enemies of Western society are attacking the Marxists, the cultural Marxists who want to turn everything good about our society, everything good, the art, the music, the entertainment, the school, everything has got to go on its head. Up is down, down is up. 1984 meets PCU meets, whatever dystopian you want to throw out there, because it's become reality.
But Yuri also says that at the end of that interview, he also says that the first people to die are the liberals and the Marxists because they're no longer needed.
Right, so, and they become your most staunch enemies at that point once they flip. Right, dude, I watch that video like once every couple months because it is so good. It is such a good video. So anybody who hasn't seen it, who's listening to this right now, go watch it. Yuri Bezmenov. All you have to do is Google "Deception Was My Job" and watch that video, because it will, especially just like the last 25 minutes of it, because the first 40 minutes of it or whatever is just him telling about his story, his personal biography, and showing slides and whatever. Yeah, and the guy that conducted that interview, the guy that actually conducted that interview, G. Edward Griffin, I think is his name. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
He's one of the guys. He's getting old now, but he's one of the guys who was. I have a short list of people that I really want to meet before they die, like Ron Paul. I really respect Ron Paul. G. Edward Griffin, he has that whole thing about how you can kill cancer with B17 or whatever the fuck. And the FDA has obviously, come down on that really hard. But G. Edward Griffin would be a really, really interesting guy to meet. Not so much anymore, but I used to really want to, and I think I still would, actually, to be honest with you, just to be able to meet the guy. I've always wanted to meet Alex Jones because he is a fucking riot. My favorite thing to do is take that soundboard and call creditors that are, calling me all day long like, hey, recently you've applied for a payday loan, blah, blah, blah. No, actually I haven't. I'm not a big fan of usury. But, so I call them back and use the Alex Jones soundboard on them. But, or like the identity thieves. Yes, this is David. I am calling you because you have an opportunity to get a lower interest rate on your credit card. Do you have a Visa or MasterCard? Okay, what are the first 4 numbers? What are the last 4 numbers? Okay, what are the middle 8 numbers? Okay, and the expiration date? Okay, what's the 3? And so I string those people along. Usually what I do is I say, oh, actually I can't talk right now, but I do. I'm really interested in your offer. Is there any way you can give me a call back? And so they call me back, and then I've got the actual number, not like the robo-dialer number. And so I'm all ready to go, and I'm like, you can't do it. You know what it's like knowing you ruined my life, you sons of bitches. I love the show soundboard. It's the greatest thing. I'm pulling it up. I'm sorry, I got to pull it up. I got to pull it up. Anyway, you guys continue. I'm pulling up the soundboard. I got to do it.
Well, we got to talk about your time on the Alex Jones show as well.
Oh yeah. Okay, so this is one of the ways that I became friends with Joe Biggs was I called in to troll Alex Jones. And I called in as this social justice warrior named Smitty. And I called him up. I had him going out. He was fuming. Skip the break. We got to get to this. Skip the break. You can actually, I got to find it. I'll give you guys the link. But it was funny as hell. I just trolled the shit out of the guy twice. I called in. The guy didn't. 2 days in a row. We're gonna take callers now. Time callers only. All you have to do to get on that show is just time it perfectly. As soon as he says we're gonna open up the phones, the number to join us is immediately you dial, and you will get through. And they only kind of screen your calls. So I trolled him a couple times. He had a guest on, and I talked about my gold pleasure wand and my silver pleasure wand, because social justice warrior. Yes, this is Smitty. You are a hateful man. You are such a hateful man. Oh my goodness. And so Smitty was like the AW guy, and he believed it for a little while. But then I think Biggs told him that it was actually just a troll. He was. I think the video is called. There's one on YouTube called "The Best of Smitty." If you look it up, that's all me. So, but yeah, and I thought that I sounded too gay, but it actually turned out when I listened to it that I didn't sound gay enough. So yeah, Alex Jones is a source of some of my most fun entertainment. I love the guy, but I mean I think that he's cucking for Trump now. I can't do it. I can't do Alex Jones anymore.
I'm sick of you poisoning us, and I'm sick of you killing foster children, you murdering filth! You are the biggest scum on the planet! I'm asking you, your mommy didn't breastfeed you, did she?
Damn. That's harsh.
Shut up. Just shut your mouth until you know a thimble of information. You're a bunch of drug dealers!
Yeah, I'm good at. I know where all of them are. I know where all of them. I could probably just talk to you with the Alex Jones sound.
Hello. Hey. It sounded like your phone was fading out. Are you still there? The truth is, I love you. You cannot make this up. How am I supposed to sit here and calmly take this? You can go to hell.
Tell us about your childhood.
Period. Leave me alone, you idiot.
This is the coup de grace of Alex Jones rants, though, right here. Where are we? Oh, yes. Here it is. Ready? Oh, wait. No, I'm going to do the complete rant.
You know what it's like knowing you've ruined my life? You know what it's like, you sons of bitches? I'm tired of your crap. You commit evil, you're part of an evil system, and we're standing up against you. And the Republic is going to defeat you in the end. Some of us won't make it personally through this, but
You've heard it.
I frankly don't have time for you anymore. You are un-American fake trash who go around feeling good about yourselves. You make me sick.
The Alex Jones soundboard is amazing, and I encourage everybody to use it as much as possible. One time
that seems like so much fun.
One time I called up a guy, and he knew who it was, and he was like, "Oh, Alex Jones soundboard. Can I talk to Benjamin, though?" And I was like, "Oh, click." Oh, you can't talk to Benjamin. Who is that? This is not Benjamin. This is
Jim Mars.
Oh, what did you say that was? What is your name, sir?
Dan.
Can you repeat that?
Dan.
What's your last name?
Edwards.
Oh, okay. How's it going today?
Good.
Oh, really? Okay. And then, but you have the way you rope them in is by getting them to respond. So you have to ask the question. So that's when
It sounded like your phone was fading out. Are you still there?
That's when that comes in, because then they have to respond to you because you've asked them a question, and it's poor customer service if somebody asks you a question and you don't respond. And then you've got them. I also did. There's a 24-hour prayer hotline out of Tampa. Did that one too. That one was a good one. What's wrong?
You're a savage.
I need to tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on.
Mainline apartments now are saying the refrigerators watch what you eat, what you do, and track you for the government. And the country's gone, folks. And you, the yuppies, none of you can see it, but you will see it once it finally runs aground completely. Ah!
I think we should do that right now.
Treason!
I'm sorry. I'll stop.
we should.
It's too much fun. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm taking it down. But yeah, no, you ask them a question, then they're going, then you got them. I wish Alex Jones wasn't a shill. I really do. But now the one time he actually did bring up Israel recently was he talked about, and coincidentally, this was right before the Chobani guy sued him. So I don't know if it's got all to do with each other. I always try and make connections that aren't there. But what happened was he got on there and he's like, I'm not going to take this anymore. You think that I'm going to sit here and blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to start naming everybody. Yeah, everybody knows that Rahm Emanuel and his brother Ezekiel Emanuel are in charge of the Jewish mafia. Aha, they don't want you to hear this, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, shortly thereafter is when all the shit started. So I don't know if one is connected to the other, but you know me, I'm, like, always going with shit like that, Steven. You know, it's an obsession.
Yeah, you always was on it. But, it's funny that he could say, okay, I'm going to start naming everybody. As if you had this information, like you said before, that 15% of information that's held back. Because if you could say, you know what, I'm going to start naming everybody, that means you've known this all along. And you're supposed to be the one that's giving out the information. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Why are you holding it back if you had it?
Exactly.
Why are you holding back, Alex? Why are you holding back?
I can actually tell you why. You have to look at the person who owns the radio station that he's on, Genesis Communication Radio Network. There used to be a guy on there from Midas Resources who dealt in gold. And guess what? I'm sure that you can finish the story. It's hard for me to even say because, the brainwashing and the Holocaust and everything else. So
this common denominator, right?
It is. It is.
It's like the Ravens.
It's everybody. It's not like it's every single Jewish person. It isn't. I mean,
but
it's
we're talking about them. From what I've seen is that Jews will sacrifice other Jews.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It happened during World War II.
Yeah, it's their aristocracy that's perpetuating this stuff.
Right.
Well, recently in New York City, there was a takedown of New York City Police Department officials that were having sketchy, I guess would be the right word if you want to say that, sketchy relationships between rich Jewish jewelry dealers and bankers and higher echelon NYPD officials.
Really?
And the best part is, guess who dimed them out? Take a guess.
I'm on pins and needles.
Another Jew.
Who, Bloomberg?
No. It was some lady.
Oh, really?
Yes.
There are good people within every. I mean, I'm positive that there are even good Muslims. I'm positive, and that's something that if I were 90% of the alt-right, you would never hear me say. So, I am positive that there are good Muslims. I've met them myself. I'm positive that there are good Jews. I do have Jewish friends. I am positive that there are good people in every race in society, but that doesn't mean that we should turn a blind eye to those who are doing bad just because we're trying to not be racist.
Right.
So.
No, exactly.
Right.
But I mean, it's just funny that it took somebody from within the community to point out to the NYPD that, hey, these people from within our community are giving diamonds and blowjobs and expensive steak dinners and baseball tickets and et cetera, to these higher NYPD officials. You know what I mean? And it, just to give them favors and stuff like that. It was fucking, ridiculous how many people went down. Ridiculous. Like, there was suicides over it. there were freaking arrests made. Like, people were going to go to jail. Like, crazy. Like, what's going down because of that.
See, you know what? That right there is a secret to greatness in society. If you're able to call the bullshit out amongst your own, that improves your own. And then you can improve more and more and more. It's a domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's the same way that, black people in the hood don't want to rat out their fellow, gangbangers, fellow black people.
Exactly.
Across all of society. Cops don't want to cross the blue line. They don't want to rat out somebody else in their police department on the, inverse side of the spectrum, I guess you could say. And it's like, if you don't do that, it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, but that's not true, though. I mean, that whole blue line shit, that's not true. I can let you know that for a fact.
It's more true than you would. I mean, I'm not saying it never happens. I'm not. No. I know that there are whistleblowers within the police department. I absolutely do, 100%. But I also know of lawsuits like that lady in Florida who pulled over the guy who was speeding in this squad car with the lights on, and she was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And she gave him a ticket, and she had to end up suing because she lost her job. Nobody wanted to be her partner. I mean, look at Serpico. If I'm telling you right now, I try and be a more
again though, but like that's because nobody cared at the time. I mean, if you really think about it, like the whole Serpico thing. I mean, it was back in the '70s where these dudes were getting paid like 160, 117. Sorry, not 100, like 17, 18, $19,000 a year to do a job that nobody in New York City wanted to do. I mean, so of course nobody was going to say anything. I mean, because nobody cared because people were getting paid. I mean, that's different. I mean, if you look at the level of like what's going on, you know what I mean? Like what's actually happening, compared to past times. I mean, like anytime like internal affairs or anything gets called, it's cops calling on other cops. It's just how it goes now because everybody's worried about their own jobs now. Right. And it's just how it works.
You also can't forget the Ferguson effect as well. That's obviously making the job that much harder.
Exactly.
I guess my entire point is, from me personally, on my own. I mean, I try and be a moral guy. But if I were a cop making $35,000, $36,000, $37,000 a year to start, I would have a really, really hard time if I busted a drug dealer poisoning my streets, my community with heroin. If I busted him with $10,000, not being like, yeah, I busted him with an ounce of smack and $7,500. I'm not saying that I wouldn't do that because I think that I am not strong enough of a person to turn that down. That's why I couldn't be a cop, because I am not honest enough. Police have an extremely hard job. I'm very sensitive to the fact that police have a nearly impossible job. It's very thankless. Look at Soros and Black Lives Matter. They put the target on the police. Police.
Yeah. That was madness.
Yeah, and it's like, so believe me and trust me, I am very sensitive to how bad cops have it, and I also am of the opinion that if there is a truly a good cop, a moral cop, then that person should be put up on a pedestal in the community and shown to, because that would be so hard. I mean, I have cops in my family, and I know for a fact, well, one of the police, who is my wife's cousin, was actually just exonerated when he was exonerated when he shot a guy 8 times in Louisville. He's a great guy. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's a really soft-spoken guy, good guy. I mean, he's not super smart, but he's a good-hearted guy. And he shot the guy 8 times because the guy would not stop taking the gun out of the case. He told him, stop, don't take it out. The guy basically committed suicide by a cop. He also stopped a guy who said he was going to commit suicide and had a knife to his throat. He tasered him and stopped him from doing that. Coincidentally, one of the guys in the EcoBoost group, who's from Kentucky, I'm going to leave his name out of it because I don't know if he'd want me to say his name. He knows his wife works at the hospital that the police send everybody to, University Hospital. So he knew about all these cases that I was telling him about. And on the other hand, I know for a fact. Well, I'm not even going to say that because I like the guy way too much. But all I'm going to say is nobody's immune from having a bad day. Nobody's immune from crossing the line. And so if a cop is truly a good cop, I try and err on the position that I am going to support police because I'm not going to support the other side. I'm not going to support the fucking criminals. I'm not going to support Black Lives Matter. I will not. But I think that police play such an important role. They're where the rubber meets the road, that we need them to understand that we have their back, and we need to have the businesses want to give them free shit, because it is hard not to to skim a little bit off the top. And like I said, me personally, I don't know that I am strong enough not to do that.
I agree with what you said there, and especially the part about having a bad day, because if any type of mistake is automatically looked at as racism, no matter what, that's a problem, because you take out the human element of it. I remember there was this one, there was an incident where the guy was trying to stop this retarded kid, right? So he was laid out on the floor, and one of the officers from a long range ended up shooting the guy in the leg. Obviously, he did it by accident. You know what I mean? It's not like you don't have someone laying on the ground with a whole bunch of people there just stretched out, and you say, you know what? I'm gonna just shoot this nigga.
Right.
It doesn't work.
That would be pretty irresponsible. That's
pretty irresponsible.
Behavior.
Right. There's better ways to handle that. You know what I mean?
The training's better than that.
Yeah. He made a mistake. He messed up. Up. Not every cop is a great cop. Some may be a little bit shaky in it. Some may have passed by the skin of their teeth. Just like any other job that's out there.
It's true.
So that's why that has to be taken in consideration. I try to look at things and put it all on an even playing field. Like, it doesn't matter where you are or what you're from. If you're doing something savage, then I will call you a savage. If you're acting like a monkey, I'm gonna call you a monkey, because it's not about your color; it's about your behavior, and that's what people don't understand. When I put something up on my Facebook, and I think it was the Women's March, and I was like, and this guy was talking to the woman, and no, it was a Trump protester, and he was talking to him and hitting him with questions that the guy just couldn't answer. Right? I was like, yeah, he civilized that savage. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, everybody came for me. Oh, why is he a savage? Why is he a savage? I'm like, they are savages because of their behavior. They are throwing things. They are flipping cars. They're burning stuff. Mm-hmm. That's savage behavior. And I will call it out anywhere I see it. And I'm not going to hold it back because the perpetrator was black. That would then make me a savage sympathizer, which is one step closer to being a savage. And I'm not doing that. When the white guy came up to New York and stabbed the can collector in the chest, that was savage behavior on his part. But you can't take that and then say, oh, you see, these white people are doing this, they're killing black folks, when black people are killing white people all day, every day. Right. Across the nation. I mean,
you can look at the FBI statistics. Statistics don't lie. You can't argue with math. The rape statistics are off the charts too.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. And it's like you have these hard numbers there, and every fact they want to explain away with an excuse. Oh, that's because the white man such and such, this, that, and the fourth. I mean, it drives me nuts sometimes. Like, I'm literally looking like I feel like I'm drowning sometimes, You just look around yourself, you be like, is there anyone? I got a few. It's funny. There's some guys that are some hardcore, straight up gangbangers that understand what I'm saying, because they live the other side and they know what they're doing is wrong. And it's funny that I could get the truth out of someone like that, but then I could look at a working person who's working hard, taking care of their family, and they don't see how these liberal policies is hurting them.
Right.
It's
It's the new
mind-boggling.
plantation. It's the new plantation. Truly, truly, it is. I mean, the welfare system and the whole it's not my fault, it's society's fault type attitude. That is just another mechanism of control. And there has been a lot of despicable shit that's happened to the black community. There is no doubt about that. They're testing out things on the black community that they're gonna implement for us all. And I'm sympathetic to that too. But at the same time, I refuse to have any white guilt. I'm not going to feel guilty about who I am, and I am going to call a spade, for lack of a better pun. I'm just going to do it. And that's what people have to realize is when you start being honest, if you work for the truth, maybe, hopefully, somehow we can change the world. We can change people's perspective enough that we can roll back this terrible mess that we've created. We've created it ourselves by being complacent. I'm talking about white people here. White people have created this for themselves by being complacent, by not asking the question about who's behind this, by not, by getting too comfortable. And as long as the TV comes on, as long as the water turns on, and it's not poison like Flint, as long as the water comes on, as long as the light switch goes on, as long as I've got my shit, I mean, really, who cares? I shudder to think about how bad things would have to get for there to be any sort of mass uprising or mass change, because it would have to get to a point where people just couldn't even deal anymore. I mean, the way that the TV, the flicker rates take you into an alternate reality, the way you feel after you get done with the movie. I mean, people, when they watched The Fast and Furious when it came out the first time, people were dying in street racing accidents because they were seeing that and they were taken to an alternate reality. When you detach yourself from reality with TV, you're detached from reality. It's like being addicted to drugs. And, once you detach yourself from reality, you will accept whatever, if you're a soft-minded individual especially, will accept whatever it is that the TV is trying to tell you. I mean, people still watch CNN. People still believe CNN. I mean, you're on the internet. You see it. Everybody sees it.
I mean, this is what I just find funny. So, because you just said a lot, and I mean, it's true. I mean, to trick people into having guilt, to feel guilty about who they are, I mean, that's genius. I mean,
it is. It's diabolical.
Yeah,
it is diabolical.
I mean, how do you trick someone into feeling guilty about who they are?
How do you have a white woman? How do you have a white woman screaming at a white man? You're a white male.
Like you're a white straight male.
Well, it wasn't a white. That looked like a white woman, but you're a fucking white male. That was Aid Skrillex, wasn't it? That's
that's Aid Skrillex.
Oh, who was it that what's the girl? The shut the fuck up girl, the redheaded chick.
Oh yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
That's going back a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. But social justice warriors are a rare breed. They're a rare breed. They're very far detached from reality. It does make me think that, I mean, there's something more to the mass mental illness that is, plaguing society, not only in the United States, but around the world. It's, we're experiencing the fruits of what globalism and, corporatocracy gets us. We are... And in our complacency, we are seeing what a dystopian society we've built, and that's one of the reasons why I was freaking out so much today. Why I was like, you know what? I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me anymore. I don't have a fucking job right now. I'm a fucking writer. I watch my kids and I write articles. That's what I do now. So what do I have to worry about? Am I going to get fired from my job? No, I'm not. So I'm going to say what the fuck I have to say, and I'm going to ruffle some feathers, and I'm going to make people uncomfortable. Because I think that that's the only thing that I can do, short of actually taking physical action, short of actually going to that Antifa protest with Based Stickman and all of his friends and smashing those fucking commies in the head like I want to do. There's nothing that I want more to do than to make it logistically possible for me to go to every Antifa protest and fucking take as many of those pieces of shit out as I possibly can. I have so much hate for Antifa. I can't, it's hard for me to even put it into words. It gets to me. And this is, It's mass mental illness. Whenever I start thinking of it,
But I mean, realistically,
masked fucking cowards. You fucking
they
cowards.
are. They're
I
fucking
don't go to
cowards.
protests
Ben
because
said, "You know what grinds my gears."
I don't go to protests. I don't, because I know what I'll do. I'm not saying I'm tough. I'm not saying I'm tough. I'm not saying I'm tougher than anybody else, because there's always somebody who's going to be more badass than you. But I'm saying that as a father, as an American, as a fucking, man of God or the creator or whatever you want to say, I do consider myself a man of God. I have a different kind of impression of what I think God is than a lot of people, but that's neither here nor there. As a man of God, it is my duty as a father. It is my duty to fight these people. This is evil. This is completely immoral and amoral. I mean, these people are, they're promoting Islam. How can you completely thrash Christianity and denounce Christianity, denounce it completely? Just the media, the movies, everything else. We've been shamed. Christians have been shamed. I'm not technically a Christian. I identify as Christian as like a cultural thing because my people were Christian. That's how I practice. I think organized religion's a mechanism of control. But what I'm saying is that you have the left aligning with Islam, which is like the most backwards ideology that you could possibly fathom. You're talking about people who do honor killings. You're talking about people who mutilate people's genitals. I mean, the Jews are into that too, so let's not, read the Talmud. But what I'm saying is like the left has aligned themselves with these people who are completely immoral. They're psychopaths. They're inbred. They are inbred, backwards psychopaths. And nothing that I say is not true. For anybody who ends up hearing this and is like, oh, Ben thinks that, Muslims are all inbred, go fucking look it up. Because the birth defect rate in the UK for Muslims represents something like 87% of all the birth defects that are, indicative of incest in the UK. And it wasn't like that anymore. I can't say who had the patient or what hospital they were in or what their name was, but somebody I know who's a medical professional had a patient the other day, let's say, and let's say that they had a very common name in the Muslim world. And the problem was that they were inbred. I used to work for a woman at my first job when I was 15 years old was with a couple of Muslims who were cousins, and all three of their children had medical deficiencies. People who are inbred are much more impressionable. They're much more likely to take the bait. They're much more easy to radicalize. And that's one of the reasons why, and this is no offense to our law enforcement friend, but this is a court case. You can look it up. I'm not trying to be a dick. But that's one of the reasons why if you score too high on the entrance exam on the police entrance exam, you can be disqualified legally for being too smart, because they know that people who score too high on the entrance exams are more likely to question the orders that they are given. They're more likely to rebel against authority and not go along with the party line. It's a court case. You can look it up. Actually, I think it happened in New York, so you guys might actually be familiar with that. Somebody brought a lawsuit, and it ended up going to either the Supreme. It didn't go all the way to the Supreme Court, but they said no, it's not actually discrimination. But so they were allowed to do it, but they were disqualifying people based on the fact they were too smart. The people that the left has aligned themselves with are inbred, and they're dumb, and they are backwards, and I hate their culture. I'm sorry, I hate it. I can't get with a culture that stones women to death. And I mean, it's not like I'm the biggest fan of the gays and everything else, but I think that they should be allowed to live. I don't think that we should be tossing all the gays off the buildings.
Or stoning
them. That's their life. What you fuck don't make me nut. I don't, that's fine with me. But you know what? As to what you were saying earlier, well, just a little bit earlier in
I know I go on these diets, don't I?
Yeah, no. You made some really good points. But you were saying how they're denouncing Christianity and they're embracing this Islam stuff. You ever notice how weird it is? If someone shoots up a school, right? Some white kids, say one of these white kids goes and shoots up a school, uses that same gun that you have back there. They will be ready to ban that gun in an instant. But if a Muslim goes and blows up a whole bunch of stuff, they don't want to ban that Muslim. Their response is to bring more Muslims in.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. You'll be ready to ban guns if somebody uses it in a mass shooting. You're like, oh no, there's too many guns. There's too many extended clips. But when Muslims do these things, their response is, we need to have tolerance. You want to double down on their tolerance. They say, let's double down on the tolerance. That it doesn't make sense. You can't get more upset at the gun and want to restrict that, but then get more tolerant as more things happen. The more Parises and Londons and all these attacks that happen, the more tolerant they want you to become. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Stockholm syndrome.
It's weird.
Stockholm.
Very, very strange.
Yep. I mean, jeez, it's we live in quite a world. I'm never very shocked at the way things go down these days. I'm never very shocked. Oh man, I'm getting sad again. I'm talking about it too much. I'm getting too sad here.
But then it's like, what can we do to change it? I mean, realistically, like what?
Well, look, what's a nation built off of? A nation is built off of the family structure. And it goes out from that, and those family structures make connections, and then they form units. They form eventually armies, and they form people. The more of this that goes on, what we're doing right now, at least that's a start.
Right. Because
before there was no conversation. Right. I remember in my blind Democrat days, there was no. You wouldn't even consider anything else from the opposite side. You were so you're so deep in the plantation that there's no way that you're going to get out.
The echo chamber effect.
Exactly. And the fact is now, like the way AR and I do this show now, we invite anybody to come on. You could have a totally different. Oh, come on now.
I know, I'm kidding.
I'm talking about people with like vastly different opinions than ours. So someone from the far left. We would have a conversation the same way you and I are talking, and just get to the bottom of it. Because I'm a strong believer in, if ideas aren't challenged, then there's no progress. So I don't want to ever stay in my bubble too much, because then I'm going to start to miss things. You understand what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah. And that's why university is the way it is now, because nobody's allowed to challenge that. And nobody's allowed to, be anything but a liberal. They want to shut down Ann Coulter and Richard Spencer and everybody else and not let them even speak on campus, because how dare we even let an evil Nazi, how dare us communists let a Nazi on our campus? So, I mean, it's because there's a vacuum of free thought, of free thinkers, of free ideas. There's no exchange of information. It's just a big liberal circle jerk, and it's disgusting. And that's why I will never go back. I tried to go back to college. I did. I tried to go back to college because I was like, fuck this. I'm gonna get my degree. I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna. I mean, I know I'm smart enough to do it. I hate school, but I'm gonna do it because I have to. It's for my family. I'm gonna do it. The first class that I took getting back to school was called African art. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I like art. I'm artistic. I like music. I like art. I always like drawing. I do memes. It's fun. Actually, this was kind of before memes. But the first thing that I was exposed to in this, and this was what they called a cornerstone class. So you had to select a cornerstone class. You had a cornerstone class and a capstone class, and you had to complete one of their, handful of curriculum selected by the, by all the communist teachers and Marxists, whatever. But you had to take it if you wanted to graduate. So the first class I took African art, and literally our first assignment was look at these pictures and then write a response. Tell me what you think about this art. And the art was literally straight out of Stormfront. It was pictures of like if you've seen racist cartoons before, it's like the guy that draws the racist cartoons, and it was like vulgar and foul shit. But it wasn't meant to like diminish black people. It was meant to show how evil Whitey was. There was actually one where I couldn't believe it was part of the curriculum, because it was literally a cartoon of some guy getting cucked by like a jungle black person, you know, huge dick, of course, and like, oh, are we gonna sit here as white people and take this? And I was like, I'm not gonna do this. Like, I'm not gonna be a part of this. And it was, by the way, it was university. It was just to name the college, because this was fucking bullshit. I was pissed about this. I quit going to school because of it. I was like, I told my parents, I was like, look, I'm sorry that I told you guys that I'm going back to school, and I asked you guys, you know, like for my birthday, can you pay for a couple classes for me, because I want to get my degree and blah blah blah. Of course, they were real happy about that. I was like, I'm not going to sit here and be subjected to this. I won't. It doesn't feel right for me to do it. So I wrote a big, you know, my response to it about how the teacher was a fucking commie. I couldn't believe that they would actually show stuff like this in class. This is the way that a fraction of 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 percentage of people actually think. And just to throw it out there, even the ADL says that there's only 5,000 KKK members in the United States. You're more likely to win the fucking lottery than you are to run into an actual KKK member, it seems. But yet, they're going to beat us over the head with this first thing coming in. And I'm just
Ben, check this out. No. Check this out, Ben. There's a certain co-host that I know that has a very succinct view into the Ivy League world. I don't know who's AR.
Oh yeah. So I go to a very, very ritzy private school in New York City, and I know
it's not. Are you going to reveal which one it is? It's not Columbia. Is it?
No, it's not Columbia.
Okay, that is the center of the Frankfurt School. Anyway, go on.
And I have recently been dismissed from one of their master's programs because I talked about this on the show. I think it was about like 3 weeks ago when it happened, because I do not meet their requirements of social justice in my personal life.
What in the fuck does that even mean?
What in the fuck? Exactly. Because apparently I wasn't too social justice warrior for them, because I'm very conservative even in my classes, and I asked them for facts. And you know, like there was classes where people would present stuff on feminism and pay wage gap and stuff like that, and I'm like, well, you know, economists have debunked this.
Right.
Like, how are you even doing something on this when, you know, like this subject has been debunked?
Right.
Like,
if it was true, they would hire nothing but women.
Yeah.
Duh.
Exactly.
You know, and stuff. You know, it's stuff like that, and they're just like, well, you don't know. It's oppression. There's no oppression here.
You are committing so many microaggressions that you just couldn't even. You couldn't even. How are we supposed to put up with these microaggressions in the current year? I mean, it's 2017. How am I supposed to still have to worry about Nazis? I can't believe you're a fucking white male. You died in a fucking gulag.
Too bad. Too bad psychologists have already disproven microaggressions. But I mean,
well, you know where the study of psychology originated and how it's come around the way it has, right? Because of Freud, and you know about Freud, right?
What?
And you know what tribe he subscribed to. I'm just saying the coincidences are there everywhere. I hate to harp on it, but psychology, the way that we understand psychology, is not the way that the actual human mind works. Some perverted weirdo, was given a lot more credibility than he ever should have been given. You know, Freud was degenerate. He's a fucking pervert. I mean, everything that he had. I mean, he thought that all men wanted to fuck their mothers. I mean,
that whole Oedipus.
Yeah, I mean,
Oedipus
The Oedipus
syndrome, right?
complex. Yeah.
Complex, right.
the dude was a degenerate, and he has shaped the very field of psychology.
Not
I
really,
mean,
not really shaped it. I mean, he's just a founder of it. I mean, because
well,
of
right.
him, there was so
Shaped
many.
it.
There
He
was so many.
founded it.
Yeah. He's just a founder. I mean, because there was so many branches of it that branched off because of it. I mean, you have Zhang. You have, you know what I mean? Like Zhang.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's the only one, but I'm saying what I'm saying is of
Sorry.
psychology. Who do you think of? You think of Sigmund? I mean, normal people.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying. That's my field.
Right.
So I
Right.
think of Skinner. I think of, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
my
you
field,
do. I do. Anybody who knows psychology do, but your average normal person has,
Freud.
Sigmund Freud is like, oh yeah, Sigmund Freud, he's the guy, psychology and blah 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 blah, and he's great and
Well, I
blah blah.
think, yeah, because like when you take Psychology 101, I mean, they teach you like he's like a founder of, he's like one of the founding fathers of psychology, of course. I mean,
Mhm.
and he's
Well,
one of the easiest
I
ones
guess
to
my whole
remember.
point I guess my whole point is that he's not what he's cracked out to be.
Oh no,
And
no.
because of the foundation that he laid, it's more part of the regressive nature of the left and the regressive nature of things versus actually concentrating on real science and things that you can actually hypothesize and prove using the scientific method and not just theorizing everything and saying
but
yeah.
if you use his psychosexual theory, I mean, it seems like the regressives haven't got past the anal stage.
I mean, you got me there because I don't really have a response to that. I have peripheral knowledge of a lot of stuff, and that's one of the things I have peripheral knowledge of. So if you were telling me that that's the case, I believe you. So
Anal retentive stuff like
no,
that.
I get it. I mean, I get the terminology. Oh yeah. Are you guys tired at all yet? I'm fucking tired, man. You guys are. It's an hour later where you are too. You guys are some. You guys.
I don't even know what time it is.
You know what? This is what we do. Actually, this is usually right about now is when we
usually do about
start to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Start to wrap it up. It's usually about 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hour show, and it's been about 2 hours. But I tell you, Ben, it's been great having you, man.
Well,
this was awesome.
It's been an honor to be a guest with you guys. I'd love to, come back. I enjoy talking to you. It's great
definitely.
I've seen your face so many times on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thrilled to just be able to be here and talk to some good guys, some like-minded people, and you have me back anytime. I'm more than happy to be. I'm very available. So yeah, I appreciate
Definitely. Say the website and where they could read your articles.
Yeah, it's www.borderlandalternativemedia.com. And I'm Ben Lambert. I don't have a lot of stuff on there, but there's a lot of good stuff on the page. We have a Facebook. We have a Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter. It's Ben Lambert 314. Pretty easy. It's my real name, so don't try and dox me. I'll tell you where I live. I'll tell you whatever stuff you want to know about me if you're on the left. I'm not scared of leftists.
Come get it if you want it.
If you want some, get it. I really appreciate it. It's Borderland Alternative Media, and before I go, I just have to say one thing, and that is that I appreciate above all other things my wife, who allows me to act like a fucking idiot all the time like this. She's the best person ever, and I can't speak highly enough about my wife. She's given me the most wonderful life I could have ever possibly imagined, so I have to say thanks to her. I should have thanked her at the beginning, but if every man had a wife like I have, who let them be who they are, I think that the world would be a much better place. So I'll leave you guys with that, and keep up the good fight, and thanks again for having me.
All right, thank
Thanks
you,
for
and
coming
you're welcome
on.
back anytime.
Yeah, anytime you want to come on, just let us know. We appreciate having you on.
You got it. All right, boys. I'm gonna hit the hay. Have a good one.
All right, now take care.
Have a good one, brother.
That was an awesome show there, AR. What you think?
I don't know. It was great. A great show. Ben was a great guest. Very informative. Blah, 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 blah. One of those nights already. I mean,
yeah, it is 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when the gibberish starts to come out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. That's when you get drunk and shit. You're just like, oh, you feel drunk. You're like, I haven't had anything to drink tonight.
Drunk with fatigue.
Yeah.
But it was great. Well, America, thanks for staying up with us, and as always, guard your freedom.
Yeah. Like always, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for fucking traveling with us on this journey tonight. Fucking pass this around to your friends. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Fucking and all that good shit. Guard your fucking freedoms. Peace out, America. Peace.
More raw, the slaughterhouse meat that's still warm. My rare form caused a major retreat from World War. What's more, beast mode is red dawn. Brandish firearm, metal in my palm. Almost if I had a Midas palm, even by myself. What you face is Leonidas, arm me against the world. For the struggle not to fly upon dirt, new ways to contain this rage. Every day, self-control, but it takes its toll. Explode, take it all like your chin in my load. Bringing down foes 100 up and I ain't reload. My suggestion is to bundle up, I'm bringing the cold. The shell of those who throw your body, take a loss at the goal. I'm not a person, I'm a force and a current of presence. The effervescent essence elevates into heaven. Greatness awaits us. We are definitely destined. Make a diamond out of motherfucker after we press him.